ready.
Kendra is very sweet. She's a Catholic speaker, a faith coach, an author. She has proven methods to go deeper in prayer, ways to discern God's will, which we all want to know. And she inspires us to keep Him as the center of our life. Her talk, the first one, rough road to Mary, even though she healed my addiction. Let's welcome Kendra.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I didn't mean to hide from you. Okay, I gotta move, I think. What do you say? All right. Yay. Okay, I am so excited to be here. How many of you know my story, just to get an idea? Okay, oh, by the way, Mary Jane, when I was at Mass yesterday, which, by the way, I don't know who went to Mass, but it was phenomenal. Monsignor was so wonderful, I was bawling my eyes out, and I turn around and I see Mary Jane Fox, and I'm like, that can't be her. That's got to be a doppelganger, you know, someone who looks just like her. Because why would she be in Montana? She lives in San Antonio, Texas. So back in the beginning of my journey, she invited me to speak at her conference down in San Antonio. And at that time, I didn't share everything about my past because I was too embarrassed to share it with all of you because I thought you were going to judge me. So it's great to see you. God bless you for coming out here. Thank you. Okay, so nobody is more shocked than I am to be standing here in a Catholic women's conference. I didn't want to be Catholic. I will share with you my past. My parents, praise God, initiated me into the Catholic Church by CCD. So every Saturday, me and my brothers would go to CCD class. I wasn't paying attention at all, really. I was in my soccer uniform waiting for my game. So that was just something my mom shared with me. It was what we did because we were raised Catholic, so we're going to raise our children Catholic. But we didn't practice. We were Creasters, Christmas, Easter people, right? You can use that name to describe everyone that you know that's not practicing. So the only time I went to Mass was for Christmas and Easter. And I was so bored. I want to share with you 3 things that I did not know about the Catholic faith. Number 1, that the Eucharist, Holy Communion, is Jesus Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity. I had no idea. No idea why everyone's walking up to receive this little circular bread. It's not a symbol. Number 2, Jesus is God. I just thought Jesus was God's son, right? He is God. Don't even get me started about the Holy Trinity. I had no idea. And then number 3, why Jesus died for us. I see him on the crucifix. I don't know anything about why he died for us. How in the world can I call myself Christian, let alone Catholic? So, the world raised me. And when I'm talking about the world, I'm talking about Satan. And I believed every lie that he told me would make me happy, where I would find that love and acceptance and success. So, I'm looking in the audience. I think a lot of you may know this. If you ever watch TV, I did find out that some of you were raised well without watching cultural TV, and I'll share that with you in a moment. But remember the Angélique commercial? I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan. Everyone, and never, never, never let you forget you're a man, 'cause I'm a woman. Angélique. Wow, my voice was shaking there. That was weird. Okay, I'm 10. I'm 10 years old, and I see this commercial. Now, I'm a 10-year-old, chubby, mousy brown-haired tomboy. I was not a girl at all. And I think about how grateful I was, and I am, I'm sorry, that I was not raised today, because I might actually think I'm in the wrong body. I should be a guy, right? I'm telling you, it's true. Okay, so I'm freaking out at 10 years old, and I'm watching this woman who's tall and slender, long blonde hair. She's wearing a business suit, and she's whipping around a fistful of cash. And then later on, she is actually talking with her husband, right? She's reading her kids. I don't know if it's her husband, to be honest. She's reading her kids, tickety-tock. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I've got to be like that. So I started my first diet. Y'all know Tab? Oh my gosh. Can you still taste it? I mean, how horrible was that aftertaste? Oh my goodness. So my dad had Tab in the glass bottles, that you used to take back and get money for. And I'm eating salads and I'm dieting. This becomes my disordered relationship with food and exercise. So the exercise was Jane Fonda's workout. Who did that, All right, who had the leg warmers? Because that's really what I want to know. Oh my gosh, a lot of you did. I used that as an excuse with my mom. I said, the reason I don't work out is because you didn't buy me the leg warmers. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, so my whole disordered relationship with food and exercise starts at 10. And then at 11, I saw my first pornography movie. I didn't graduate by looking at, magazines. I was exposed at 11 years old to pornography. And so now my formulation of love and relationships and acceptance is morphed into this perversion of, hey, I have to do things with guys in order to make them like me, let alone love me. And boy, if you don't think that those women in those movies aren't perfect, that even shocked me even more. Like, oh my gosh, I have to look like that? Now I see them naked? Like they have no cellulite anywhere on their body. And I was so, just everything about exposure to pornography truly just distorted everything in my life. And then I was addicted. So I was watching it all the time. I was trying to get guys to like me. I was doing every diet in the book. And then I couldn't stick with any of them, so then I turned bulimic. If you don't know what bulimia is, it's you eat and you eat and you eat, and then you throw it up. So this was my life. I was so insecure in my own skin. I always wanted what other people had. I want Susie's parents. I want sisters. I grew up with 2 hockey-playing brothers. I wanted to have skills. So I was a soccer player, but Heidi was the best one, so I wanted what Heidi had. I wanted that person's body. I never was satisfied, never looked at my life and said, I am blessed. I am so glad about my life. So fast forward, I go to college. I don't know why I'm at college. Everybody else is just going to college. I wanted money because clearly, if I go back to the Angelique commercial, money is where it's at, and I don't want any man to take care of me. I want to take care of myself. So after I graduated with no special degree, although I will say it was a communications degree, a psychology degree, and a journalism degree. Sorry if any of you have that. It's a good degree. So I wanted to get into sales because I thought, okay, this is the way I'm going to make money. My dad was in sales. He made good money. And I thought, well, I could write about you, analyze you, and talk about you with those 3 kind of specialties. But then there was cold calling. I don't know if you've ever been in sales, but you got to pick up that phone and ask for business. Yeah, at 20-something years old, that wasn't my thing. And I was so shameless. I would walk up to you and say, we would just meet at a party or at a bar. Of course, I was always at a bar. And I would say, so, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, how much do you make? What do you do and how much do you make? How rude. I mean, if I think about it now, that's very rude. But at the time, I just wanted money. I forgot to mention that I also was introduced to beer. Beer. My dad had a huge vending machine, you know, that you get your Coke and your Pepsi out of, filled with beer, and you need a quarter to get one out. You better believe my brothers and I were fighting for every quarter in the house, because 2 dimes and a nickel would not work. It had to be a quarter. And my parents didn't have a problem with us drinking because, to be honest, they drank quite a bit themselves. So we were underage, and we were drinking. And then in high school, about senior year, I ended up being introduced to marijuana. Boy, what a stupid drug to get introduced to when you already have a problem with food. You know, let's get the munchies and then just keep eating. Thank you God, though, he kept me away from cocaine or any of the speed or whatever, because, they didn't really have heroin and the stuff that meth, they didn't really have that when I was a kid, thank you God again. But he kept me away from the cocaine because I was even smart enough to know that if I got into that I would snort my entire life away. So this addiction to marijuana, and truly, I say borderline addiction to alcohol, at some times, I think I really was addicted. Because 5 o'clock became 4 o'clock, became 3 o'clock, became, it's 12 o'clock somewhere, all of these excuses to change my state of being. If I'm so happy with my life, why do I always need to get high? Why do I always need to drink? And when I'm talking getting high, I'm talking waking up, grabbing marijuana, and smoking it like it's a cigarette. It's called wake and bake, and I would carry my drugs with me in my car, even when I'm jumping forward, but throughout my professional life, I would go out for lunch, and I would smoke in my car. I would smoke on my way home. I would smoke when I got home. Totally addicted to marijuana. Okay, so you might be like, well, how in the world did you get back into the Catholic Church? It's only been 11 years on my journey. So I ended up climbing the corporate ladder pretty fast. I was the breadwinner in my family, and I was trying to get a CIO, Chief Information Officer title by the time I was 40. And at the time, I was really, really, really trying to get it. So 10 days before my 40th birthday, I got the promotion to Chief Information Officer at a global company based in Paris. It was an environmental company. And I was so thrilled. And you should have thought, at least I did, I finally made it. All right, life is good. I don't have to search for something else. Boy, was I wrong. Because when I got into that job, and you being at the top of your department, let's say the CEO left, and a new CEO comes in, he or she may be bringing in their own team. So typically, for me, I was always worried about losing my job. And so we had friends that were buying lake homes and buying boats and buying wave runners and all this stuff. So that must be what makes me happy. So my husband and I bought a lake home and a boat and a couple of wave runners. But I was drinking even more, continuing to smoke every day, because I was so insecure in my own skin, even at 40 years old. Okay, how did I get into the Catholic Church? My father at the time, I was about 42 years old, I got a call from his girlfriend, and she said, this is back in 2013, and she says, your dad is going in for quadruple bypass surgery. Now you gotta understand, my dad was on ice skates at 70 years old. He was coaching hockey. It was awesome. Like, there was not an ounce of fat on this guy. There was no sign that anything would happen. And I'm thinking, quadruple bypass surgery? What? So, for the first time ever, I prayed for someone else. Now, I did have a little bit of a prayer life. I believed in God, just didn't know who he was. And even in my 40s, I was praying this prayer, which, once I say it, join with me. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I awake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. If I should live another day, I pray the Lord to guide my way. Don't ask me how I know that last part. I have no idea. But I would pray that even in my 40s. Thank you all for helping me figure that one out as I was losing it in the middle. But it was always one-way asking train prayer kind of things, like, Lord, make this boy like me, when I was a little kid. Lord, help me lose weight. You better believe I prayed for that. Lord, will you help me get this job? And then when I got the job, Lord, will you help me keep this job? These are the kinds of prayers in air quotes, because that's not a relationship with God. It's not. Okay, so I'm crying. I'm praying for my dad, and he healed him. His surgery was awesome. He was on his feet and back on ice skates as fast as possible. I mean, it was a miracle healing. And I was one of those 9 lepers that never went back and thanked God. Never. And so, during that time, it's always about me, everyone. This is my Holy Trinity, me, myself, and I. So I looked at myself and I'm thinking, hey, I'm like 20 pounds heavier than I should be. I told my husband, dude, I watched Dr. Oz. Anyone watch that guy? I have since weaned myself off of him, by the way. But at that time, I bought a cleanse book. Anyone do a cleanse? Okay, only a few hands, and nobody's raising them really high. It's darn near impossible. What happens is you don't eat anything other than like organic, free-range chicken, organic vegetables, wild-caught fish, that type of stuff. You drink water, no alcohol, no coffee, no dairy, and then you introduce things back into your life. And during that time, we had to take a bunch of horse pills, and my husband can barely swallow a baby aspirin. So when I brought all these pills to him, he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." All right, we only stayed on that diet for about 2 weeks. We didn't lose any weight. It was kind of a waste. But God spoke to me in that book. There was a little pie chart with little segments of your life, and one of those pieces of pies, one of the pieces of the pie in the chart, said spirituality. Now, I didn't know what spirituality was. I didn't think about New Age. I didn't know the difference between Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Catholicism, Christian. I just thought everyone was Catholic. I didn't know about all these different denominations because I didn't care. But I looked at that spirituality name and I immediately interpreted it to be religion. So I said, okay, I'm cleansing my body. I might as well cleanse my soul. So everyone's over at my house on Easter Saturday, we used to call it, but now I know it's Holy Saturday. And everyone comes over the day before Easter because back when the kids were younger, we wanted them to do their Easter egg hunt and play with the bunny and their candies. We never brought the name Jesus up ever. And so everyone was over at my house in 2013 on Holy Saturday. And you better believe me and my husband were eating the house down because Sunday, Easter Sunday, the day that we should be celebrating and feasting, we're going to start our cleanse. We're not going to eat anything. So, as I typically do, the day before my diet's going to start, which is always on a Monday, I eat everything in the house, every candy, every cookie, everything. I think I've honestly probably polished off a whole cake at that time. And 2 bottles of wine at least. So everyone's still at my house, and it's about 11:30, and I'm like, all right, I gotta go to bed. So I tell everybody, my husband didn't even know this. I say, guys, I gotta go to bed. I'm going to church tomorrow. The whole family are fallen away Catholics, everyone. So half of them say, what? And the other half say, why? Like, who are you? This is nothing like you. We're totally confused. My husband had those, the cartoon where the eyes go, like out at you. He looked at me like, you don't expect me to do this with you, do you? And I'm like, no, I'm doing it myself, don't worry. So, my mother's boyfriend, God rest his soul, he says, where are you going to church? Now, this is a guy not practicing who went to Catholic school, who was an altar boy, and totally turned away from the faith. And I said, I'm going to, and I called it a big box church because it wasn't a Catholic church. All I knew was there were police officers directing traffic. It must be good in there. Look at all those people, you know? And I didn't want to go to that mass because it's so boring. Again, I still don't know what I don't know about the faith. So I get the third degree from everybody. Why aren't you going to the Catholic church? Like my mom's like, yeah, but you're Catholic. And I was like, whoa. So I grab my phone. It's 11:30 at night. Grab my phone, find the nearest Catholic church, and I said, all right, I'm going to the Catholic church. You all happy? Now I'm going to go to bed. Oh my goodness, that alarm went off the next day, and I was like, whose stupid idea was this? I mean, I am bloated. I mean, my stomach was just out to here. I'm hungover, and now I got to go do this thing because I told everybody, you know, and I roll out of bed, and I'm like, oh, I find something church-worthy to wear, and I walk in to this Catholic church that I have never been to ever. Y'all have to know, I don't want to know why I'm saying y'all. I'm from Chicago. But I'm building a place in Tennessee. You'll hear about that later. Maybe it's catching up on me or something. But you all have to know that I never went to Mass by myself. So my first husband, I would go with his family. And then, of course, I would go with my family on Christmas and Easter. And we would leave before the final prayer, right? While Jesus is in our mouths, we are going out to the car to beat the traffic. That was my father. Scary. But that's what we did. That's what we knew. That's how we lived. So I'm kind of scared walking into this church all by myself. So there's this shorter little lady, and she's walking in front of me. And I'm like, okay, I'll follow her. So we walk in through the narthex, and we get into the doors. There's holy water. At least I remember to bless myself. I remembered that. And I'm scoping out like the back seat because I don't want any of you all seeing me standing and sitting the wrong time. You know, I'm thinking everyone in this church is holy. They all know what's going on except me. I was so uncomfortable. And I saw a couple of pews in the back, and this little lady starts heading toward those pews. And I'm like, oh, don't sit in the back one. Don't sit in the back one. Sure enough, she went in the one right in front of the last pew. And she genuflects, and I didn't know what that was, so I follow her. Then she kneels, and I kneel right behind her. I'm in the back, the pew right behind her. And I'm thinking, well, I wonder what she's saying or what she's thinking. I'm not even thinking of praying because I don't really know how to pray. I don't know that you're supposed to prepare yourself to receive Jesus. I don't know what a state of grace is, and I have many mortal sins on my soul. So she sits back, I sit back. The priest comes up the side, and he's saying, Happy Easter, Happy Easter. And he comes behind me and this other guy in the pew on the last pew, and he says, hello, people in the back row. You know? And I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, a priest with a sense of humor. Like, I've never met a priest in my life. I didn't even know they were celibate, people. This is how little I knew. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so much better. And then he walks up the center aisle, turns around, and says, peace be with you. And I'm like, oh, I know this one. And also with you. And I say it loud because I am confident that I know this response. And none of you are saying that. And I am like, what are they saying? Oh my God, why didn't I get the memo? Hello, like somebody tell me what's going on here. I shut up my mouth. I don't even pray the Our Father and I know it. I am like, I'm just gonna follow this lady in front of me. And I know she was thinking, ooh, this girl hasn't been here in a long time. It had been 2 years since they made that change. And so I do everything that she does, and of course it comes time to receive Jesus in the Holy Communion, and I just get up, and then I have this moment of panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, as I'm following everybody up, which is, by the way, that is us proceeding up the aisle. as the church. We are the bride, no matter if we're a husband, a wife, or a man or a woman. And we are receiving the bridegroom, Jesus, when we get up there. That's why the Catholic weddings are like that. I had no idea. I'm just walking and then I panic like, oh, what am I supposed to say? I almost said thank you. Can you imagine? And I'm like stressing to hear what people are saying and I can't. So God put in my heart to say amen. So I said amen. And I go back to my pew. Now, this is when I'm gone. I don't even know what happens next. So I'm sitting there, and the priest said, okay, here are the announcements. We're at the end of the Mass. And I'm like, announcements? Are you kidding me? Like, let's get out of here type of thing. And then he says, next Sunday, Divine Mercy Sunday, which I have no idea what Divine Mercy Sunday is. We're going to have confession at 2 o'clock after Spanish Mass. I'm like, okay, what's that all about? Confession. Okay, this is what happened. It was a moment of reflection. You need to understand, I never had a moment of reflection. I hated silence. I would have the radio on, the TV on, anything on to constantly have noise in my head. I don't have a choice sitting in this church. So, you know those pictures where the one person is in focus and all the people in the background are blurry? That's kind of what happened to me while I'm sitting in this pew. I'm like, confession. Like, I know I have mortal sins on my soul here. All right, let me count. I ran out of fingers. How long has it been? I'm carrying the one in my head because I'm not good at math. And bottom line, I figure out I haven't been to confession in 26 years. And I've committed adultery, too. That's the one sin that I haven't told you. And boy, oh boy, did I have a language problem. My mouth was so raunchy. I grew up with 2 hockey-playing brothers. My parents swore like truck driver. Sorry if you're a truck driver. Sailor. Sorry if you're a sailor. You know those phrases. Every other word was the F-bomb. So you have to understand, I truly did live what Satan told me to live. And I thought I was cool because I swore. Okay, I didn't decide to go to confession at that time. I said, you know what? That was a nice little reflection. Everybody started coming back into focus. The sound came back, and then I left. The next Sunday, I got in my car, and I was like, okay, that wasn't too bad. A couple embarrassing moments, and also with you. And I'm going to find out what in the world they say. So I went home, and I ended up looking up online the Mass. I don't even know how to search stuff, right? About the Catholic Church and the Mass. And this beautiful article came up. Then I found out it was, and with your spirit was the response. And then I stumbled across this weird word, Eucharist. I'm like, what is that? So God led me through the internet. It can sometimes be a really, really good thing, to Eucharistic miracles. And then I realized that is Jesus. This is my first week on this journey, people. Oh, just amazing. Okay, next Sunday, I go back to Mass, and then my husband and I, it was such a beautiful day. You guys all know how it is out here when you have long winters. It was a beautiful afternoon, and we went golfing after Mass. And now, at this time in my professional career, I was freaking out because 3 companies were merging together. And that meant that there would be only one chief information officer, and the entire company was toxic. Everybody was cutting each other down. Everybody was fighting for their own job. I mean, it was horrible, horrible. So, sure enough, I am one of them, and I'm probably the worst gossiper in the entire company, because I thought knowing stuff about other people was power, right? If I knew what was going on and I could start talking about other people, maybe they wouldn't talk about me. So I was drinking myself into oblivion. I was obviously smoking all the time. I'm, 42 years old, and this is what happens when you smoke marijuana for 20-something years. I just lost my train of thought. Okay, where was I? Anyone? Divine mercy, confession, thank you. Golfing, someone said. Okay, we're golfing. So, thank you, everyone. All right, so I'm leaning forward, and my neck was on fire. I was grinding my teeth and clenching them. I was a mess. And I had, sometimes at night, when I would wake up and I couldn't fall back asleep, I would down NyQuil. That is disturbing, really disturbing. Okay, so I go home. I tell my husband, we're on the third hole. I go, baby, I cannot do this anymore. I got to go lay down. So I lay down in my bed. My dogs are next to me. And I'm watching the ceiling fan, swirl around. And I am telling you, it wasn't an outside voice, but it was in my head, and it was so loud. I'm not kidding you. It was like this. Confession after 2:00 Spanish Mass. That's how loud it was. And I was like, what? Where did that come from? I mean, it freaked me out. It really freaked me out. And I'm laying on my bed, and I'm like, I look at the clock. It's 1:00. I can make it. Maybe it'll make my neck feel better. I don't know. I'm going to do it, I have no idea about the examination of conscience. I don't prepare for this, but I grab myself a pen and an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I start writing. And then I flip it over, and I fill out both sides, and I don't have very big penmanship, and I'm like, whoa. Like, I put the Hello Kitty eraser that I stole in 7th grade. I mean, this was like a general confession on my piece of paper. And I was like, whoa. I fold that puppy up, put it in my purse, and I go back to that same church that I've only been there twice. I don't even know where the confessional is. Long story, I have to fast forward it. I've got it in my book, but I will take you the moment that I walked in. And you have to believe, I was so scared. I was sweating, I was shaking, like I thought that this priest was going to give me a penance that was so huge, I expected to be yelled at. I mean, I had every single mortal sin on my soul, and I want to include murder. Why? Because I was on the birth control pill for 20 plus years. I guarantee you that there was, at one point in time, a little baby that was developing in me, and I killed it. But I didn't confess murder at that time because I didn't know birth control was a mortal sin. Okay, there were many, many, many sins that I didn't know were mortal sins at that time, but I walk in, and I'm so scared. I'm a comedian by nature, right? When I'm uncomfortable, I laugh or make jokes at myself, self-deprecating kind of humor. So I kneel down, and I say it just like this. And by the way, the only reason why I know what to say is because of the movies, I mean, think about how many movies you've seen. Well, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been X amount of years. So this is why I know what to say. And he says, good afternoon. And I'm like, shaking, and I'm like, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Get a load of this. It's been 26 years since my last confession. I say it exactly like that. And he comes back with the most beautiful voice, and he says, welcome home. And that was when I lost it, y'all. I mean, I was just tears pouring. Someone turned on a faucet, and my tears were just coming down my face so hard. They were hitting the page. I can hear them. Tss, 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 tss. I could not see. The frog in my throat was huge. And I was like, how am I going to get through this? But it didn't matter. You want to know why? Because I knew that God loved me exactly the way I was. I knew through that priest that I was loved. Man, I'm shaking like I was in there. It was amazing. Thank you, God, for putting that priest in my way for that day. And I was in there for probably 30 minutes. I don't know, because we went through everything. And then I pulled myself together, and then he absolves me of my sins, and then the tears start coming again. But there was something that had happened to my body. I had this peace that came over me. It was incredible. And then I was like, I had this peace, but then this joy It was amazing. You want to know what happens in the sacrament of confession? Every single demon that you have let into your life through your behavior or through maybe curses that other people put on you are taken away. You will feel lighter. You will feel spiritually lighter. You will be mentally and emotionally different. If this is touching any of your hearts, get into that confession. I will share later on this afternoon how the sacraments help you and protect you, because I went away from them as much as a daily mass. I'll share with you this afternoon. I got to tell you what Mary did for me. So I walk out of that confessional. I don't just walk out, I float out of there. Oh my goodness. So again, I don't know what Divine Mercy Sunday is. There is a line of people all the way through the church, out the narthex, around the corner, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they think I killed somebody, like I'm walking away, and I was so embarrassed, but I'm so glad I did it. Okay, fast forward to the fall. I just had this amazing experience. My husband comes home, I'm like, you gotta go to confession, and he's like, what are you talking about? You just went home from golf, And then the Holy Spirit put in this unquenchable thirst to figure out what this Catholic thing is all about. Why? Because when I came out of that confessional and I sat in my car and I looked back at those church doors of that Catholic faith that I don't want to be a part of, I knew God was in there. I knew God was in the Catholic Church. So then I start gathering every bit of the Lighthouse Catholic Media CDs, right? Now St. Augustine, or Augustine Institute. And they're coming out of my car, and I listen to this DVD, or the CD from Father Michael Gately. And I don't really understand what this Marian consecration is. It's consecrating you to Jesus through Mary. So I tell my husband I'm going to do this 33-day prayer thing, 33 days to morning glory. And I get to the 33rd day, which is December 12th, the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And I'm praying my final prayer, and my husband comes home later that night after work, and he looks at me and he goes, you look different. I'm like, I do? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about this, everyone. I hadn't gotten high yet that day. I had no desire for it. So when my husband made that comment, I was like, yeah, because I'm not stoned. I don't have pie eyes, I'm like, I looked at him and I said, dude, I finished that 33-day thing today. Maybe it's a miracle, and I'm healed from this. And he looks at me, ha, 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 I'll believe it when I see it. One day turned into a week, turned into a month, turned into 6 months, turned into a year, right? This is what the power of praying through Mary's Immaculate Heart to Jesus. And you want to know the funny thing? When I was reading that prayer, the thought occurred to me to maybe ask for this marijuana to be taken away. But the minute I said it, I took it right back. I was like, no, never mind. I want this in my life because I don't know what my life will be without it. How will I relieve my stress? How will I deal with my job and all of this other stuff? Wow, what a difference my life is and was at this time, and we'll get into the second part later. My husband even said, man, because he's only known me high, man, you are a different person. So let's go to Mary, pray to Mary. Latch on to the sacraments of this Catholic Church. Our faith is so beautiful. Mass, to receive Jesus in the Eucharist, to protect us, to heal us. If you can go every day, go. Definitely go on Sunday. And confession. When Sister Dee Dee started talking about, well, I don't want you to be scrupulous and go every week, I'm like, yeah, you do. Every day. You know what? It's funny. I went to Latin Mass, and I asked the priest, can I come every day? Because in this Latin Mass church, confession was every day. And he goes, yeah, no, that's probably not a good idea. But as often as you can, because the more that you take this journey, the more you're going to realize how sinful you are, even with the venial sins. You know, it's thoughts, mind, soul, body, everything. Okay, so I'm running out of time. It's my time to stop talking, which is very hard for me to do. But I look forward to sharing this afternoon about how I let marijuana back into my life and how staying away from my sacramental practices and my prayer life was leaving me unprotected. When we talk about putting on the armor of God every single day, it's not just words. We need to live it. We need to practice it. Okay, thank you all. I love you all so much. I'll look forward to hearing you or seeing you this afternoon.